On your feet, Summers. You're wanted in Mr. Reed's office. That wasn't a request, it was an order. Now move.
There's no need for me to see Mr. Reed. I'm not going to fight Tim for the kids. They'll be better off with him.
Well, it took you long enough to realise that. You're not in here for the good of your health.
Realise it? Don't you think I knew every time I hit him that I was hurting someone I loved?
If you must know, neither one of you are fit parents. In fact, your children have been made wards of the state. They were put in a home this morning.
Miss Bennett, may I see you, please? I'll explain in a minute, Gail. You couldn't wait to tell her, could you? And what could you possibly hope to achieve, apart from delighting in sending her over the edge?
She wouldn't see Paul Reed. Somebody had to tell her.
There are other ways.
And what are you doing here anyway? You shouldn't be wandering around the prison out of uniform.
If you mention one more regulation to me, Vera, I promise I'll have no hesitation in reporting you for mental cruelty toward an inmate.
You should have a good look at yourself once in a while, Meg. For instance, why do you care so much about her feelings? Maybe it's because you feel guilty at having put her in prison in the first place and then her children in a home. But that's your problem. So don't go around taking your guilt out on me.
You have been in and out of trouble ever since you were allowed on work release. Now, for some unknown reason, you want to get out of it. How can you expect me to be fair if you will not tell me why?
There's nothing to tell, Mrs. Davidson.
How did you find out about the delivery contract?
I just heard about it, that's all.
All right, Doreen, you've had enough chances. Yes. As of now, you are no longer permitted to work at the factory.
Yes, Mrs. Davidson.
Maybe you wouldn't be so happy if the program was cancelled altogether, Burns.
Oh, crikey, Mrs. Davidson. The others had nothing to do with it. You can't punish them for something I did.
No, and I have no intention of allowing the matter to rest there. I am going to ring Mr. Reynolds and advise him not to accept any offer made by your husband, no matter how much it undercuts the others.
It was a matter of neglect, Gail. We tried contacting Tim, and when we couldn't reach him at work, we waited until he came home. For welfare, were going to suggest a reliable woman, but he wouldn't listen. He was drunk and abusive, and they had no choice but to take the children away. Now they'll be properly looked after until the outcome of your trial. And when the custody hearing comes up, you'll have a much better chance now of winning the case.
No. I couldn't stop myself when Tim was there. What'll I be like without him? And who'll look after us?
Look, there'll be people to help you.
Oh, look, you were the one that got me arrested. You knew I shouldn't be near him. Now you're telling me you can see me back there looking after him?
Look, Gail, with time and help...
Oh, no, look, say I do get him back. Well, is someone going to watch me 24 hours a day? Well, they better, because I wouldn't trust myself alone with them ever again. I couldn't bear it. I used to pretend he was just clumsy. Well, that's what I told you. Seeing them bruises, knowing I did it. Well, in the end, I started believing that he really was just clumsy myself. But then he'd start screaming, and the baby'd start up, and Katrina would want something, and Tim would be screaming at me to shut them all up. No matter what I did, nothing worked. Pick him up, he'd want to be put down. Put him down, he'd want to be picked up. All I wanted was a minute to myself. Why wouldn't he stop crying? I just wanted to do anything just to make him stop crying. I'm so afraid I'll do it again.
She didn't have to take it out on Kevin, the old battle axe.
Yeah, it's tough. But you brought it on yourself.
Don't worry, Dor. Kev will get something else.
And at least she didn't stop us from going...
Yeah, but I went through all that for nothing.
Went through all what?
Oh, you know, getting stopped from working, everything.
Now, would you like to try something I might believe? Come on, Dor. You can tell us.
We're your mates.
Why don't you tell them about the story?
Shut up.
Why don't you rack off, big ears?
Bit of the old how's your father, eh, Dor?
What's she on about?
Oh, Vince Talbot. He's the foreman. He took a fancy to me. He said if I didn't go along with him, well, he'd report me for stealing and have the work release stopped.
A rotten mongrel. Oh, if he tried an old trick like that on me, I would have given him what for.
Well, I told Judy, and she used to go to the storeroom with him instead of me, but he never tried anything on her. Then I wanted Kevin to get that job real bad. So I had to do what he wanted.
Oh, why on earth didn't you tell me?
Well, what could you do? You were in here.
Oh, you're not going to let him get away with that, are you, Bee? Well, we're going to have to replace Doreen. I'll just make sure it's with me. And this creep wants to play rough. We'll see if he could do with a few lessons from an expert.
You'd be the last on the list. Only way you'd get out of here is if everybody got sick or died or something.
This could be arranged.
At the moment, you're under a lot of pressure. Apart from being in prison, there are the problems at home and... Well, the women here don't like, or more to the point, don't understand anything about child abuse. And mostly their lack of understanding is exaggerated by the fact that they're cut off from their own children. Oh, Gail, you've got to stop hating yourself.
To what I did?
But you were under a lot of pressure from home, and once you admit that, it'll be easier to do something about it.
That's why we want you to think about joining Parents Anonymous. They're a specialised self-help group for parents who have abused their children or who are afraid they might.
Yeah, but why are you here? I mean, why can't Mr. Reed handle this?
Well, Mr. Reed is very busy. And since this is an area that Captain Barton is expert in, Mrs. Davidson thought... Well, the point is, you've got to get help, and these people can help you.
One of the things that they stress, Gail, is that criticism only makes you feel more of a failure, which in turn can lead to further abuse.
Do you mean there's people that really understand?
Of course there are. Now, with this group, you only need to use your Christian name if you like. There are no costs involved, and there's a 24-hour counselling service. And they can also help with things like marriage guidance, legal advice, home help. And there are volunteers on hand to help you with the children if you feel you're reaching a crisis situation.
Now, it'll help at your trial if you say you're joining Parents Anonymous. And more important, it'll help you get custody of the children.
Yeah, but how come everyone else can handle it okay?
Don't you believe it. There are far too many people too quick to say, I can cope. Mrs. Next Door has no problems with her children, therefore she'll think I'm hopeless if I say I have, so I won't admit it. And you end up bottling everything up inside you and suddenly exploding. Now, why should anyone feel ashamed or guilty to say they need help?
Here, we can both use this.
Oh, great.
Oh, you'll never get out of the country on an expired passport.
Yeah, well, I've been given the name of a forger by one of the girls inside.
You know, I could never set myself up to be sent to prison, no matter how much I cared about anybody. But then you always were different. Jude, try taking anything out of the bank and they'll grab you.
Yeah, I know. But I'll think of something.
Listen, I can let you have a bit. Well, not much, because most of our money's going into making this mess.
You're someone very special. Did you know that?
Of course I do. You're really set on going back to the States? Oh, look, I'm sorry that letter from your dad took so long arriving, but it was sent to 2 addresses before I finally got it and passed it on to you.
Yeah, well, I've got to go back, you see. My dad wants to see me.
Hi, Meg.
Tony, where have you been? Your father's worried sick.
Well, yeah, but I didn't want to tell him where I was going in case he tried to talk me out of it.
There's always the telephone.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't have time. Spent most of the last 2 days hitchhiking to Adelaide and back.
Adelaide?
Yeah, for a job. And I got it.
Marvellous. Congratulations.
Thanks. Actually, it's not just a job, it's a partnership. It depends on Dad coming good with the money.
Well, what sort of business is it?
It's a garage.
Oh, that's a tough one these days, especially the way oil prices are going.
Oh, yeah, I know, but I'm sure we can make it work. It's better than being on the dole.
Of course it is. Good luck.
Thanks. You don't think Dad'll be too upset to see me?
No, he'll be relieved to see you. He's really been worried.
It's becoming quite the family day.
Well, does it bother you?
Well, just as long as Paul Reed finds time to put in his report on Gail Summers.
Well, you must read it, Vera.